So, um, I want you to imagine standing in the middle of this completely empty, just totally overgrown dirt lot.
Okay.
And you have this incredible vision in your head. Like you can close your eyes and literally see a towering, magnificent house right there on the grass.
Right, you can see the exact shade of paint on the porch.
Exactly. You can, imagine the way the evening light is going to hit the living room windows. It feels intensely real.
But then you open your eyes and it's just dirt. I mean, it's weeds and empty space.
Yeah, the vision is flawless, but the physical reality is mud. And that massive gap between what you can see in your mind and what actually exists in the physical world, well, that is exactly what we are dissecting in today's deep dive.
A huge gap.
It really is.
Hmm.
We are looking at a framework called the Architect of Ambition. And what's interesting here is rather than a dense, psychological textbook, this philosophy is distilled into an incredibly concentrated dose.
Very concentrated.
Yes, literally just 2 specific sentences.
And honestly, the brevity is what makes it so demanding. There is no academic jargon to hide behind here. It strips away all that intellectual padding and just forces a direct confrontation with your own daily habits.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We're going to begin with the foundational concept of this framework, starting with the first principle, which is, quote, dreams don't work unless you do.
Such a classic phrase.
Right, it sounds like a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
But going back to that empty lot analogy, I mean, an actual architect doesn't just sit on a lawn chair, vividly hallucinating a beautiful building and assuming the sheer power of their imagination is going to just, manifest a structure out of the soil.
No, of course not, because the daydreaming is merely the initial biochemical spark.
Wait, biochemical?
Yeah. So what's fascinating here is that when you vividly imagine a goal, say that beautiful house or a finished novel or a successful business, your brain actually releases dopamine.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, you get a neurochemical reward simply for visualizing the success. So your brain experiences the high of achievement without requiring any of the actual caloric burn of physical or mental exertion.
Okay, that feels like a massive biological trap.
It absolutely is a trap.
Because you're basically getting the paycheck before you've even shown up to the job site.
Exactly.
If you feel like you've already succeeded mentally, then the physical urgency just evaporates.
And that's why this phrase, dreams don't work unless you do, is so important. It directly attacks that biological trick. It forces a separation between the vision and the execution.
Because we do have this pervasive cultural tendency to romanticize destiny.
Oh, heavily. We tell ourselves that if the dream is authentic, if it's quote-unquote meant to be, it will just flow naturally.
Right. Yeah.
We treat a dream like a living organism that will just grow on its own if we give it enough positive energy.
The manifestation trap. Just, put it on a vision board and wait for the universe to deliver the bricks.
Exactly, the vision board trap. But this framework replaces that romantic notion with pure thermodynamics.
Thermodynamics.
Yes, because a dream is not a living organism. It is an inert blueprint.
Okay, I like that.
And a blueprint has zero energy of its own. It cannot exert force on the world. The only way the lines on that paper become a physical house is through the application of immense sustained effort.
So it's playing on the dual meaning of the word work.
Exactly. The dream will not function, it won't succeed or operate unless you physically and mentally exert the effort to build it.
So the responsibility of success shifts entirely onto your own caloric output.
100%.
Like you have to calculate the load-bearing walls. You have
Yes.
to understand the physics of your materials.
Yep.
And eventually somebody has to put on a hard hat, pour the concrete, and sweat in the sun.
Sweating in the sun is the only way it gets done.
And if the building doesn't get built, it's not because the stars weren't aligned or, the universe didn't favor your vision. It's because you didn't swing the hammer.
And that level of absolute accountability is heavy.
It's very heavy.
It demands action. It sets this foundational philosophy that abstract goals possess absolutely zero inherent value without the concrete friction of execution.
The friction of execution.
Yeah.
And, the moment you realize the physical universe demands that friction, you inevitably hit a wall.
Right.
You sit down at the desk, you stare at the blank page or the complex code or whatever, and discomfort hits.
Immediately.
You immediately want an escape hatch, which is why the next directive in the framework is so violently jarring.
It really is a massive pivot from abstract philosophy to a modern behavioral mandate.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. The text completely abandons the poetic wisdom of dreams don't work unless you do. And it just drops this 2-word aggressive command. Stop scrolling. Start working.
Stop scrolling.
Feels like a slap on the wrist.
It does.
But, I have to push back on this a little bit on behalf of anyone listening who has ever stared down a really daunting project. Is it really that simple?
Mm.
Because procrastination is this deeply complex psychological web, right? We're talking about fear of failure, perfectionism, imposter syndrome. Does boiling all of that human anxiety down to just stop scrolling actually solve anything? Or is it just kind of reductive?
Oh, it is entirely reductive.
Okay.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, that reduction is the intervention.
How so?
Let's look at the mechanics of why the author chose the specific word scrolling. They didn't say stop procrastinating. They didn't say stop feeling anxious.
Right.
They identified the specific modern mechanism we use to soothe that anxiety.
The frictionless void in our pocket.
Exactly. Consider what happens when you attempt to work. Work is inherently high friction.
Oh, yeah.
You try to write a sentence and it sounds terrible. You try to write a piece of code and it breaks. You are basically facing your own incompetence continuously.
Which feels awful.
It does. Your brain interprets that friction as psychological pain and it immediately searches for relief. And scrolling is the ultimate engineered relief.
Because there's no friction at all.
Yeah.
Your thumb just makes this tiny repetitive micro movement. You don't have to make any decisions.
Zero decisions. You are locked in a state of completely passive reception. A river of micro-information just washes over you, providing these tiny, unearned hits of dopamine.
And it never ends.
That's the other thing. Scrolling lacks any natural stopping cues.
Right, like a book has chapters.
A book has chapters. A television show has credits. The infinite scroll has no bottom. It is literally designed to bypass your prefrontal cortex.
The planning part of the brain.
Yes, the part responsible for long-term planning and goal setting. It bypasses that and keeps you submerged in an endless present.
So bringing it back to our lot, you aren't building a house. You're just wandering aimlessly through a neighborhood of houses other people have built, peering in their windows and completely forgetting about your own empty lot.
That is a perfect way to put it. And by placing stop scrolling directly against their cache, start working, the text constructs a brutal binary.
Brutal is the right word.
It contrasts the infinite, frictionless void of consumption with the finite, high-friction act of creation. It refuses to allow you to intellectualize your procrastination.
It doesn't care about your excuses.
It doesn't care about your imposter syndrome or your fear of failure. It just observes your physical behavior. Are your hands building or are they passively swiping?
The bluntness is designed to break the trance. Like if you were reading a long, empathetic essay about the roots of procrastination, you can feel understood. You can feel comforted.
And you can continue to avoid the work.
Exactly. The sheer abruptness of stop scrolling acts as a pattern interrupt. It catches you in the act.
It demands an immediate change in your physical reality. It tells you that the massive, agonizing gap between your vision and your reality isn't caused by a lack of understanding. It is caused by a lack of motion.
Action.
Right. The antidote to anxiety isn't more information, it's action.
Which brings us to the overarching title of this framework, bring these two concepts together, the architect of ambition. So what does this all actually mean for you, the person listening to this deep dive right now? How do we synthesize the demand for labor and the rejection of passive distraction into a cohesive worldview?
Well, we have to completely redefine the word ambition.
Redefine it.
Yeah, because we culturally treat ambition as an emotion.
Oh, that's true.
We talk about having a hunger for success or a burning desire in our gut. We treat it like it's a personality trait.
Like having blue eyes or being naturally extroverted. You either feel ambitious today or you just don't.
But an architect does not deal in emotions.
No.
An architect deals in physical constraints, in gravity, and material strength. By framing you as the architect of ambition, the text strips away the emotional component entirely.
That's a huge shift.
It is. Ambition, according to this framework, is not a feeling you wait to strike you. It is a structure you deliberately construct.
It's an architecture. And physical architecture requires relentless daily maintenance.
Always.
Like a house doesn't care if you feel inspired to fix the roof today. If you don't fix it, the water gets in and the wood rots.
And this raises an important question about how we categorize our time and our daily habits. You know, what are the load-bearing walls of your routine? What are the boundaries you set to protect your focus?
Because in the strict parameters of this text, there's no neutral ground.
None at all. You cannot leave a building abandoned and expect it to remain pristine.
The weeds take over immediately, the elements start breaking it down.
And in the modern landscape, that decay is accelerated by passive consumption. The moment you define your ambition as a physical structure requiring maintenance, you realize that scrolling isn't just a harmless little break.
No,
It is an active wrecker's ball to your attention span.
because it fractures the deep, sustained focus you need to build anything meaningful. I mean, you cannot solve a complex architectural problem if you are stepping away every 3 minutes to look at a 15-second video.
Exactly. The framework forces a deeply uncomfortable binary upon us. In any given hour, you are either the active architect facing the friction, putting the hammer to the nail, confronting your own limitations to build the structure,
Right?
or you are the passive observer, letting your cognitive resources just drain away into the void. You are either working or the dream is dying.
Wow. There is no magical third option where the house builds itself while you recline in the grass.
Nope.
But we love to manufacture excuses for our passivity, don't we? We tell ourselves we are, gathering inspiration when we fall down a digital rabbit hole.
Oh, constantly. We justify the endless consumption by calling it research or staying relevant.
Yes, staying relevant.
But the framework of the architect cuts through that self-deception. It observes the output. The physical reality of your life is the ultimate lagging indicator of your habits.
Lagging indicator, yeah.
If the blueprint hasn't moved off the desk in 6 months, the inputs are wrong.
So let's look at the complete journey we've mapped out here today. We started with the realization that an incredible vision, a brilliant blueprint, has absolutely zero intrinsic power. It's an unfunded mandate.
Right.
The biological high of daydreaming is a trap, and it has to be overcome by the physical, uncomfortable friction of daily labor. Dreams are the map, but work is the territory.
And then we examined the primary modern threat to navigating that territory.
The scrolling.
The engineered passivity of infinite digital consumption. We recognize that the command to cease scrolling isn't just some time management hack.
Right, it's deeper.
It is a fundamental prerequisite for entering a state of creation.
Because you cannot be a consumer and a creator in the exact same moment. The human brain just cannot simultaneously reside in a frictionless void and engage in high-friction problem-solving.
It's biologically impossible.
And we synthesized all of this under the banner of architecture. Ambition is a verb. It is a structure built brick by brick, habit by habit, by making the relentless, exhausting, but necessary choice to put the screen down and pick the tools up.
And for you, the listener, the challenge is immediate.
Yeah.
Because you are someone who seeks out deep dives, you value knowledge, you love to learn, and you are constantly gathering information. But acquiring the blueprint is only the preliminary step.
Gathering bricks doesn't build the wall.
It really doesn't. At some point, the gathering phase becomes a sophisticated form of procrastination. The wisdom of the architect of ambition remains completely dormant until you change your physical behavior.
Which is the hardest part.
It is. The ultimate test of the information you've just consumed isn't how well you understand it. It is whether it changes what you do with your hands and your attention the moment this audio finishes.
Which leaves us with a final, slightly provocative puzzle to ponder as you step back into your day.
Okay.
Because we've established this hard line between the friction of working and the void of scrolling. But the modern world is really complex. What happens when your work or your pursuit of knowledge fundamentally requires you to scroll?
Ah, the paradox of the modern creator.
Exactly. Think about a designer sourcing references or a researcher scanning vast databases, or simply a curious mind seeking the very information needed to solve the next problem on the blueprint. Yep. At what exact moment does the necessary active pursuit of knowledge quietly slip in to the passive numbing distraction that the architect of ambition warns against?
Yeah.
Where is the invisible line between searching for the perfect material to build your house
Yeah.
and just standing in the dirt staring at a screen?